Imagine discovering that the person you once trusted most has secretly been planning your death for weeks. Not a crime of passion, not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a carefully organized murder plot involving surveillance, secret meetings, and a hired killer. And yet, despite all that planning, one mistake would eventually expose everything. This is the tragic story of Shauna Tiaffay. On the morning of September 30th, 2012, a quiet neighborhood in Las Vegas became the center of a murder investigation that would shock the city. Firefighter George Tiaffay arrived at his estranged wife's townhouse with their 8-year-old daughter. As they pulled up, something immediately caught his attention. The garage door was open. At first glance, it seemed unusual but not alarming. Then George stepped inside. Moments later, he was calling 911.
911 emergency.
I think I need to report a break-in and a murder. My wife is on the floor, bloody, stiff, not moving.
His wife, Shauna Tiaffay, was lying motionless on the floor. There was blood everywhere. The 46-year-old cocktail waitress had been brutally murdered inside her own home.
She was lying on the floor.
Okay.
And she was covered in blood. I just want to die.
What shift did you work yesterday?
A 24-hour shift.
For investigators, one question immediately stood out. Who would want Shauna dead? To understand that, we need to go back several years. Born in Utah in 1966, Shauna was known by friends and family as energetic, outgoing, and optimistic. After spending part of her childhood on the East Coast, she eventually moved to Las Vegas in the mid-1990s. Like many people drawn to the city, she was searching for opportunity. She eventually landed a job as a cocktail waitress at the Palms Casino. The position paid surprisingly well. On busy nights, tips alone could bring in hundreds of dollars. Friends described Shauna as someone who genuinely loved her work. She was social, hardworking, and rarely seen without a smile. It was through that job that she met George Tiaffay. George seemed like the definition of success. He had attended West Point, served in the military, and later became a firefighter in Las Vegas. Friends described him as intelligent, disciplined, and charismatic. The relationship moved quickly. The couple welcomed a daughter and later married in Hawaii in 2006. From the outside, everything appeared perfect, but appearances can be deceiving. As the years passed, cracks began to form in the marriage. The financial crisis of 2008 affected families across America, and the Tiaffays were no exception. Money became a growing source of conflict. Arguments became more frequent. According to those close to the couple, George became increasingly controlling and critical. Shauna, who had always valued her independence, struggled with changing dynamic. By 2012, the marriage was hanging by a thread. That April, Shauna moved out of the family home. Although separated, the couple continued sharing custody of their daughter and even attempted marriage counseling. To some people, it seemed there was still hope. But behind the scenes, something far darker was unfolding. 3 weeks before her murder, someone broke into Shauna's townhouse. The intruder stole personal items including jewelry and clothing. Oddly, they also left something behind, a pair of men's boxer shorts. The incident frightened Shauna, but she chose not to make significant security upgrades. She believed it was a random burglary. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Investigators would later discover that the break-in was actually a rehearsal. The person responsible wasn't looking for valuables. He was studying the house, learning routines, preparing for something much worse. In the early hours of September 29, 2012, Shauna finished her shift at the Palms Casino and drove home. It was after 3 a.m. Exhausted from work, she entered through the garage and made her way through the dark house. She never made it upstairs. Someone was waiting for her. Hidden in the darkness was a man armed with a hammer. As Shauna walked inside, he attacked. She fought back desperately, raising her hands to protect herself. But the assault was relentless. When it was over, Shauna was dead. The attack had been so violent that first responders initially believed she might have been shot. Meanwhile, George appeared to have a solid alibi. He had spent the night working a 24-hour shift at the fire station. Because of that, investigators found themselves facing a difficult challenge. The most obvious suspect seemed impossible to place at the crime scene. Days passed with few answers. Then the investigation took an unexpected turn. A local maintenance worker contacted police with shocking information. He said a homeless acquaintance known as Greyhound had confessed to killing a woman with a hammer. Detectives tracked down the man. His real name was Noel Stevens. At first, he denied everything, but investigators soon found bloody clothing hidden near his campsite. DNA testing linked the blood directly to Shauna. Faced with overthinking evidence, Stevens confessed. Case closed? Not even close. Because as detectives examined Stevens' phone records, they discovered something startling. One number appeared repeatedly. It was of George Tiaffay. Phone records revealed dozens of calls between the two men, far too many for a casual acquaintance. Investigators soon learned that George had known Stephen for years. He had hired him for odd jobs and maintained regular contact with him. The deeper detective looked, the worse things became. According to Stevens, George had offered him money to kill Shauna. The murder wasn't random. It had been planned. Investigators uncovered surveillance footage showing George and Stephen shopping together at a hardware store weeks before the murder. The items purchased included a hammer, gloves, and a knife. Stevens later led police to the murder weapon. The hammer handle had broken during the attack. Even more disturbing was what investigators learned about the open garage door. According to Stevens, it wasn't accidental. It was a signal. A pre-arranged sign meant to tell George that the job had been completed. The discovery destroyed the image of an innocent husband stumbling upon a tragic scene. Instead, prosecutors argued that George had orchestrated the entire murder while carefully building an alibi. In October 2012, George was arrested. As evidence mounted, the prosecution painted a picture of a calculated, murder-for-hire scheme motivated largely by financial problems and a failing marriage. Stevens eventually agreed to testify against him. His testimony provided jurors with an inside look at the planning that had gone into the crime. In 2015, after hearing the evidence, the jury found George Tiaffay guilty of first-degree murder and related charges. He was sentenced to life in prison. Attempts to overturn the conviction later failed. Today, the case remains one of Las Vegas' most chilling examples of a murder-for-hire plot. A woman who spent years building a life for herself lost everything because someone decided that murder was easier than divorce. And despite months of planning, secret meetings, and a carefully crafted alibi, the truth eventually surfaced. Because no matter how perfect a plan may seem, the smallest mistake can bring the entire thing crashing down. and for George Tia, that mistake ultimately exposed a deadly conspiracy that he believed would never be discovered. What are your thoughts about this case? Do let me know in the comment section. And thanks for watching.